Jon Gruden, a white man who was a head coach in the NFL for the Las Vegas Raiders, has now resigned due to emails that were leaked where he was found saying a litany of racist, misogynist, sexist, homophobic epithets. And there's several things to take away from this, and we're going to jump right into the beginning of it. And it starts with the first email that was leaked, an epithet that Jon Gruden was found to have said 11 years ago, and his reaction. And the thing that I want to get into with this is to hone in on the lack of accountability, to hone in on the kind of the excuse or almost the delay in holding this person accountable, and then also the language that he used. I think it's very important, the language that he used in the press conference following the first email leak and then the second one as well. And so 11 years ago, it was found that Jon Gruden, a white man, had emailed a coworker referring to DeMaurice Smith, who is a black man and is the executive director of the National Football League Players Association. He was elected unanimously on March 15th in 2009. He referred to DeMaurice as Dumb Morris, who has lips the size of Michelin tires. Jon Gruden then went on to say that he doesn't have a racist bone in his body. I would challenge that and say that not only is every bone in his body racist, but the whole entire makeup of it is, he said a racist thing and he displays very racist behavior. I would consider him a racist human being who could probably work on that and then not be a racist human being. But does not seem like he wants to do that when he then says, I don't have a racist bone in my body. So also keep in mind, the emails that were leaked found these epithets were over the course of 7 years. And to say that he had a racist moment, it's not true. It's almost a racist decade. And one would say he's led a racist life. So that being said, the language that he used was interesting. I don't have a racist bone in my body, or, this was 11 years ago. And he was not fired for those statements. The statements that he made about a black man, he was not fired for. And also keep in mind that Jon Gruden's success as a football coach, I believe the NFL is 80% or more black, African American, that his success and his salary has been based on the work and backs of black men. And so here he is saying a racist thing about a black man. And also mind you that the one time Jon Gruden won the Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he inherited the team from a black man. Tony Dungy, a black man, the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the time, then left the team, or was removed from the team, fired, whatever it was. Jon Gruden took that team, essentially the same team, and won a Super Bowl with that team. So Jon Gruden's success, his money, his name, has primarily been off of the labor of black men. And yet here he is saying that a black man's lips are as big as Michelin tires. So putting that together and him not losing his job because of that is one thing. More of the emails were leaked in an investigation we'll get to in a second, and he was found to have said misogynist, sexist, and homophobic things as well, and they said, okay, this is it. This is done. So mind you where the resignation occurred and where it did not. When he resigned, in Jon Gruden's words, he said, I don't want to be a distraction. And I believe that's the same thing that Andrew Cuomo said when he resigned from his job as well. I don't want to be a distraction. And you can look at why Andrew Cuomo was ousted from his chair as well. But this idea of being a distraction, in the essence of it is saying, I didn't do anything wrong, but I see that I'm a distraction now, or almost it's the media's fault, or almost it's the circumstances' fault, anybody's fault but mine. And with that being said, how do you feel about the use of the word distraction being said in regards of a man going off on years of emailing epithets that were racist, misogynist, sexist, and homophobic? And doesn't own up to it, takes no ownership of his actions or his words, and just says, I don't want to be a distraction, let me bump up out of here. After his 10-year contract with the Raiders, he resigned from it $10 million a year. So he walked with 40, and he leaves in the middle of this season with whatever he was paid. It's important to point out that the Las Vegas Raiders, used to be the Oakland Raiders, owned by Al Davis, was viewed as one of the most progressive owners in the history of the NFL. He was very anti-league. He hired the first Latinx head coach, hired the first African American coach, who drafted the first Latinx quarterback to start in the NFL. And he also hired Amy Trask, who was the first female CEO in the NFL. So Al Davis has a history, the Raiders have a history of breaking barriers. Regardless of how you feel about Al Davis, there's a lot of things to be said about Al Davis, but we're just getting to those points. And also to point out that in 2021, Carl Nassib became the first active NFL player to publicly come out as gay. He is also the first openly gay player to play in the game. And he plays for the Raiders. And he's playing under Jon Gruden, who's saying all these homophobic things. So here you have an openly gay player, a litany of African American players playing for a coach that's saying homophobic things and racist epithets. So obviously that can't work, and thusly he had to resign. And the basis of all this, the reason why this happened, is because the NFL was investigating the Washington football team. We won't call them by their old name because the old name is racist as well, extremely racist to indigenous people. It's awful name, and why it lasted for that long. The fine comes after 15 former female employees and 2 journalists who covered the Washington football team accused team staffers of sexual harassment and verbal abuse. The WFT launched an investigation last July, which the NFL took over in August. And it's uncovered 65,000 emails. And in this investigation, this is the first that they've found. So I guess the point somehow, someway, and what I'm getting to is that the NFL has found a way to be not only covertly racist, but overtly racist while employing majority black people. And that can happen in a lot of industries. And Amy Trask said something that's very, I found very important, very paramount. She said something to the effect of Jon Gruden, they didn't discover his racism in emails. This racism was in his heart. This misogyny was in his heart. Sexism was in his heart. This homophobia was in his heart. This hate was in his heart. And just because somebody gets found publicly for saying something bigoted, derogatory, hurtful, painful, it goes to show you where else was this happening in their life? Where else was this translating to Jon Gruden's life? And also, make no mistake that Jon Gruden is not the only white person in the NFL that is saying racist, misogynistic, and sexist and homophobic epithets. And so this culture permeates everywhere. And one person has been found and they pay for it in one job. I'm pretty sure that if they do more research and more investigating, they will find that a lot more people than just Jon Gruden have to resign.